Kal-El, my future grandson. This is the story of the House of El.
This belongs to your grandson, Kal-El.
Hey everybody, it's Charlie. So we finally got our Superman TV show back on TV, and it's actually way more hardcore than I expected. They really went all out for this. It's going to be 10 episodes total, so if you are finding me for the first time, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Obviously, most of the Easter eggs they're pulling are from the DC Cosmic Universe, and pretty much anything from Superman comics. So let's just do top 10 WTF like I would normally do. And there's like extra Easter eggs because this is the first episode, so I'll just try to break it up as I go along. Starting with number 10, the setting is Kandor City, which immediately sets off warning bells in everyone's heads like, oh my god, a lot of the series is based on the characters from the World of Krypton comic book series, which was a limited run. Like there was a Dan Jurgens run that actually introduced the Seg-El character. So he's the main character of the series. They say he's about 23 years old. So he's like Clark's age when he hit Metropolis when he was still the red-blue blur before he started wearing the cape. So like right around the last couple of seasons of Smallville, that's about how old he is. And if you're wondering why they're all British, they filmed this in the UK. They wanted Kryptonians to read as British because it's a nice counterpoint to the farm boy that Clark Kent is growing up in Midwestern Kansas. So they wanted Kryptonians to feel like an ancient race that was also very different from the place that Superman grew up. So that's why they're British, and you probably recognize some of the main actors too, like Seg-El's father is played by the Constable from the Sherlock series. His grandfather is Sir Barristan Selmy from Game of Thrones, who pops up in a bunch of different British series. Remember, it films in the UK, so you'll probably see a lot of familiar faces if you watch a lot of UK series. Number 9, the death of his grandfather. So there's a lot that's going on here. Like you look at the way everybody's dressed, there's this really drab colors, grays, blacks, browns. He's the only one that's dressed in what you would think of as traditional Kryptonian garb. Like when you look at New Krypton or any of the times that Booster Gold has taken Superman back to Krypton's history, everybody has all these bright colors that pop all over the place. It looks like they have this great cultural renaissance. That's not happening right now because they're entering that time in their history that they talked about during that Man of Steel prequel.
What happened?
Artificial population control was established. The outposts and space exploration were abandoned. We exhausted our natural resources.
Where they stopped looking to the stars, where they started overmining their planet that eventually led to their destruction. Although now we have that Terminator twist to the series where you have Brainiac coming back into the past, seeming like he's trying to speed that along so that it's potentially easier for the Brainiac of this time period to collect Krypton. The really cool thing that happens is they open the episode with the John Williams theme, or a bit of a remix version of it that comes back around at the end of the episode when they pull out Superman's cape. But also as his grandfather's being executed, he says, keep believing in a better tomorrow. The Easter egg there is that Superman is known as the Man of Tomorrow. That's even the rumored title for the Man of Steel sequel, or at least the one that everybody hopes that they title it. There's also a bit of a Star Wars New Hope twist where the Senate, like the ruling council, is disbanded the way that they disband the old Republic Council and it becomes the Empire. The Emperor, so to speak, the voice of Rao that wears that golden helmet that doesn't let you see what he actually looks like, is probably going to turn out to be something of a villain. I'm expecting a couple twists, but I'll explain because it sort of ties in with what I think Brainiac from the future is doing by coming back into the past. The ridiculous premise that you're asked to accept is that Kryptonians don't believe that there's other life out there, which seems kind of silly because they're a relatively advanced race. So I think you just have to accept the idea that their society has become so dominated by religious dogma that over centuries it's gotten to the point where it is now. It's not an overnight thing that just happened. But like the Fortress of Solitude that his grandfather hid out in the wilds, that has existed for a long time. He wasn't the person to build that. That's been in his family for generations. Number 8, Doomsday Easter egg, if you guys didn't pick up on it. When they're doing the training session with the House of Zod, you basically have Lita Zod's mother telling them about all the dangers that will befall them and why they, the military guild, the Sagittarii, are meant to protect Kryptonian society. She mentions the other city-states, so like Argo City is another big city-state on Krypton. That's where Supergirl is from. So eventually I wouldn't be surprised if in a future season or later this season we bump into some of Supergirl's ancestors. But remember, this is 200 years set in the past. So if we actually wind up seeing any of the characters from present day or versions of them, it'll be some crazy time travel explainer. She also says beasts of the wild. So the thing about the wild is that Doomsday is actually a beast of the wild that was created to survive Krypton's harsh environment. So they give you a little taste of that when they leave the city to go find the Fortress of Solitude the first time. You see the ruins of this outer city, like there used to be something going on here. Maybe there was some apocalypse, some implied history, something terrible happened. So they'll probably spell that out through the course of the series. So the producers did confirm that they would do a version of Doomsday at some point, but it'll be the comic book Dan Jurgens version where you actually get to see him evolve, like a scientist actually created Doomsday. The one you saw during Batman v Superman is sort of like a backdoor clone created by Lex Luthor using the science that was stored on the Kryptonian ship, not the actual Doomsday. But number 7, Welcome to Krypton, Adam Strange. The Detroit Tigers hat was a nice touch. That's just to let you know that he's from present day. Consider him as being from like 2018, but he's basically come into the past because he's learned about Brainiac's plan in the future. So when he comes back but then disappears, that's because the Zeta Beam technology only allows him to be in the past for brief periods. So that's why he's going to be jumping in and out of the series as we get through the episodes. But because with him, he brings a lot of the Rand Thanagar mythology, we will eventually meet Hawkworld, Hawkman, Hawkgirl stuff. They did say that they would be doing those characters on the TV series. So like when Segel's grandfather says that there are threats out there, he was mostly talking about Brainiac, but there are also other systems. There's the Daxamites, there's Rand Thanagar, there's the Dominators, pretty much any space-based villain race that you could imagine from the Superman comics. So I think they're slowly dipping their toe in that water, but there are many, many threats, as they say during the episode, beyond Brainiac. It's just that first things first, this is all about introducing the threat of Brainiac and his plan to Terminator-style change the past. But number 6, discovering the Fortress of Solitude. So obviously they're using a version of the Man of Steel logo. It's a little bit different, but they're all pulling from that Man of Steel mythology because it's David Goyer. David Goyer is the person that wrote the Man of Steel movie. He's the one that personally did that Krypton pre-sequence. So a lot of this mythology that he teed up with the Man of Steel movie was the basis for the Krypton series. He uses the key to open it. It's a nice reference to Superman's key that he just leaves out in plain sight of that super dense metal that only he can pick up.
He said only a select few can pick it up. So...
But the whole idea is that now that he's discovered it, he's going to start activating all these systems. We'll probably find a whole bunch more Easter eggs. This is really just the first look at it. Number 5, the Brainiac reveal. So they tell everybody flat out what's going on. There is something out there called Brainiac. He devours worlds. So remember, this is a time travel series, but Brainiac evolves over time, meaning that the architect of this Terminator-style plan is Brainiac from the future. The Brainiac of the past is still going around the universe collecting systems, albeit he's not quite as powerful as the Brainiac of the future without as much knowledge. So early speculation, what might be happening is Brainiac from the future comes back to the past to try and create circumstances that make it easier for his past self to collect Krypton. So that's why I'm wondering if the person underneath that gold mask is just another version of Brainiac, just pretending to be the voice of Rao, or somebody who's in league with Brainiac, helping to bring about the collection of Krypton. Next big one, number 4, Black Zero. So big name drop, both a person and an organization in the comics. The reference on the TV show is mostly to the organization. They're a group of terrorists that are actually responsible for the destruction of Krypton. So they might be changing the backstory just a little bit, because when the mother says that she's part of Black Zero, it sounds like she's just saying that so that they'll throw her under the bus and she can sacrifice herself and save her son. But it's also possible because she seems like she has some crazy secret skills that she was keeping on the DL, that she may have been part of Black Zero at some point. But they've cast people for that storyline. We'll actually meet Black Zero eventually on the TV show, if we haven't already met them. But a lot of their ideals are mostly for the betterment of Kryptonian society. Like, they're all about clone rights. There's a lot of crazy genetic science that they experiment with on Krypton. Like, we visited the Genesis Chamber, which is like a whole other storyline that's going on. But Doomsday was created through creative genetics. So Black Zero is all about rights for the underprivileged, so they might be using that for this lower ungilded cast. That might be how they rise up on the TV show. But in the comics, they detonated something called the Destroyer in Krypton's core, and that's what blew up Krypton. But that's in like the pre-crisis version of the comics, so I don't know how they're going to change that for the TV show. Like, it just all sounds like they're going to blame Brainiac for everything bad that happens to Krypton now. But number 3 is parents sacrifice himself, so you kind of see they're creating the circumstances that make him sort of a parallel for what's going on with Superman. Superman is an orphan. He needs to spend time by himself. He goes to the Fortress of Solitude. Seg-El loses his parents. He needs to be alone. He goes to his Fortress of Solitude. So he has to sort of learn to be the kind of person that Superman will eventually become over the course of the series. Be the hero of his planet the way that Superman becomes the hero of the Earth. The thing about this, though, is that they sort of layer in this level of politics, this Game of Thrones aspect to it, where you have houses that have warring interests. So Allura Zod, who executes both of his parents, actually seems like she was helping them accomplish their goal. Like, she didn't want to kill them, but recognized that if they had been captured, then they would have given up the vital information that's probably going to be needed by either Black Zero or the people that are going to try and stop Brainiac. And I'm just going to call her Zod for the sake of simplicity. Even if Zod doesn't really agree with what the House of El was doing, she doesn't like what the ruling council is doing or the voice of Ra. She wants to protect Krypton. So I wouldn't be surprised if she winds up helping Seg-El. And they're also sort of changing canon just a little bit. They did say that because it's a time travel show, Terminator, Sarah Connor Chronicles style, things that they do now could potentially edit things that happen later. So for instance, he's in that relationship with Lita Zod. It's totally possible that because they don't want to marry the people that they've been bound to, that they have a biological child together that is Jor-El, and they sort of tie the House of Zod to the House of El long term in a way that they haven't been before. So imagine they do something like that, then you rewatch Man of Steel, or you watch any of the Superman movies, and it becomes Jor-El versus Zod. They would actually be related much more closely by blood. Number 2, like I said though, the voice of Ra sort of listening in when they're talking about the actual location of the fortress. Did you find it? Oh, I didn't see you standing there, Your High Honor. What possible reason could they have for not wanting to reveal what he looks like? The whole thing about that is that we've seen what a version of Brainiac looks like from the future. That's what the ship looks like when Adam Strange is talking about it, but we don't know what Brainiac looks like during this time period. But I do like the idea that the House of Vex, like this person, the chief administrator, looks exactly like the classic version of Zod, and his daughter kind of gives off an Ursa vibe, like she's sort of like the Cersei or Marjorie Tyrell of the show. The big one though, number 1, Adam Strange comes back with Superman's cape. They play the John Williams theme again. He gives him the mission. You must stop Brainiac. Protect your grandson. Protect the chance for the better tomorrow that his grandfather referenced when he was killed at the beginning of the episode. So I'm sure there's a couple of questions about the mythology. Just ask them below in the comments. There's like a whole bunch of other stuff during the episode, like the houses, the culture that we can talk about as we get through the episodes. But just everybody let me know what you thought of it so far. But I almost forgot, the cape that he gives him, everybody's been asking about the symbol because it doesn't look like Henry Cavill's Man of Steel logo, even though a lot of the series is designed to look like it's part of that Man of Steel mythology. The cape that he's wearing is actually the cloth cape that Christopher Reeve wore. If they do wind up doing Superman on the TV show, it'd probably be something that they would save for the finale, like some sort of flash forward, or he gets a vision of what his grandson will eventually look like. They'll find some way to reference that, but for the most part, the cape serves as the Back to the Future style photo, like it sorely fades as things get worse and worse and worse. So it's the reminder of the ticking clock. And I almost forgot, speaking of, other things going on in the universe, there is a Legion ring that I'm giving away as part of this. Like I do the Flash ring giveaways on my Flash videos, I'll do Legion rings for the Krypton videos. So for the most part, I think these will be Thursday morning videos. The only reason this didn't post earlier is just because of that Deadpool trailer dropped so early. But click here to rewatch that Deadpool trailer and click here for brand new Infinity War. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.